Good. It's good to be here.
So thank you very much for joining us on this cold Thursday evening here for our annual Getting Your Financial House in Order event. So if this is your first time at this event, the goal of this event is to so we can all learn more about managing debt, financial literacy, and some steps we can take to have a more wealthy and a more financially bright tomorrow. So I hope you get some ideas from how to do this from this event tonight. So if you can go to the next slide. So the agenda for tonight, I'll say a little bit about National Black MBA Association and the Twin Cities chapter. And then I will give some thank yous to our members and our sponsors. And then will be the time for the panel discussion, which will be followed by question and answers. So if anyone has any questions, I would ask that you please save it for the end. And then we will wrap it up. So I guess you can go to the next slide. So about the National Black MBA Association. So this is a premier national organization serving Black professionals. And its focus is on education, wealth building, career opportunities, and community. MBA's values include diversity and inclusion, economic empowerment, education, service, and excellence. So in addition to the Twin Cities chapter, there's 40 other chapters nationwide, which sums up to a network of over 20,000 members in North America. So if you have your calendars nearby and you're free, I would highly recommend you all reserve September 27th to October 1st of this year. This is when the National Black MBA Association Conference and Career Exposition will be held in Atlanta, Georgia. Next slide, please. So the Twin Cities chapter, the mission of MBAA Twin Cities is to increase the number and diversity of successful Black professionals in the business community by providing innovative programs to stimulate intellectual and economic growth of our membership. Also, to build partnerships with key stakeholders who help facilitate membership and community growth. And finally, to provide scholarships to students and increasing awareness and facilitating access to graduate management education programs and career opportunities for our members. So the Twin Cities chapter, we do engage in year-round programming on career and professional development, education, entrepreneurship, leadership, and lifestyle. So in other words, we're a very busy organization. And because of this, we are always looking for volunteers to help us. So if you're interested in volunteering, there's an email address right here. Reach out to communications@mbaa-twincities.org to learn more. We are a very passionate and fun, by the way, volunteer board. So next slide, please. So thank you very much to our members. Your support empowers us to keep going. And if you want to renew or join, if you want to renew your membership or join, you can simply go to this link, which is mbmbaa.org/join mbmbaa. If you have any questions about membership, you can contact our Director of Membership at membership@mbmbaa-twincities.org. Next slide, please. So big thanks to our sponsors, Abbott, US Bank, United Health Group, Mortenson, University of Minnesota, and Zalo. Next slide, please. And of course, a big special thank you to Bremer Bank for this evening's event, in addition to Tanya's company, SLAP, Sounds Like a Plan Financial Consulting, LLC. Next slide, please. So before we get into the panelists and discussion, there's one more thing I would like to insert into our presentation of MBAA. So on April 9th, we are having, that's a Saturday, April 9th, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We are having our second inaugural Ignite Black Business Summit. So this will be a virtual event, and we will have 2 session paths again. It'll be filled with expert speakers and panelists who will inspire you. So the first path will be for new entrepreneurs, where you will gather tools to make a successful business. The second path is highlighting our unique Black-owned business innovators right here in the Twin Cities. We will also continue to offer a Black-owned business marketplace that will showcase some amazing products and services. So the goal of this event is to promote our Black-owned businesses here in the Twin Cities. If you're interested in being a sponsor for the event, we're looking, gold level sponsor comes from a $3,500 giving, bronze sponsorship $1,500. And there are also individual supporters called Spark supporters starting at $25 going to $500. If you are interested in taking part in this event, you can, again, send an email to communications@mbmbaa-twincities.org. Oh, and there's also this Ignite Black Business at mbmbaa-twincities.org. So I forgot to introduce myself, but so before we get to the panelists, so my name is Patrick Hines. I am the interim vice president of communications for National Black MBAA Twin Cities. I am currently a first-year MBA candidate here at University of Minnesota Carlson School of Management, and I'm very excited to be here to be the moderator of this event. So can you go to the next slide of the panelists? Thank you. So tonight we I think we have I call it like a powerhouse panelist group. Starting with, we have Tanya Brinston. She's the Financial Capability and SNAP Ed Educator at the University of Minnesota Extension Center for Family Development. She's also the founder and CEO of SLAP, Sounds Like a Plan Financial Consulting, LLC. We also have Sean Cord. She's the Senior Vice President, National Specialty and Franchise Banking Solutions at Bremer Bank. And last but not least, we have Ian Mays, Financial Advisor at Merrill Lynch Bank of America. So you can go to the next slide. And so now is the time for the panel discussion. So once again, if you have any questions, please save them for the end. So my first question will go to for all three panelists. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your financial expertise. So starting with Tanya.
Okay, there goes the unmute button. Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to share my knowledge around financial education within the community. My name is Tanya Brinston, and as Patrick mentioned, I'm a SNAP Ed and Financial Capability Educator with the University of Minnesota Extension Program at the Center for Family Development. I've walked my own walk in my journey with conquering debt and wealth building, and since 2006, I've championed every opportunity to bring financial education to my community. Although I'm a native of St. Paul Rondo's community, I've lived, worked, and served in North Minneapolis for 14 years now. I began my career in financial education with Lutheran Social Service in 2016, where I reached over 800 senior citizens in fraud prevention workshops and presented over 300 general financial education workshops each year. In 2018, I served as the lead project manager of a new initiative called Get Lifted. And the program was designed to create lasting financial wellness and reduce the shame and stigma associated with personal debt. As a result of that initiative, I was nominated and honored with the 2018 Finance and Commerce Top Women in Finance Award, the only African-American woman in the state. And today I'm a certified financial educator. I'm currently enrolled at the University of Minnesota multidisciplinary degree program, where I'm building my own Bachelor of Science degree. I'm also a member of the AFCPE, which is the Association for Financial Counseling and Planning Education. I'm a recent graduate of the Neighborhood Development Center Planet Entrepreneur Training Program. I served as a board member, financial educator, and coach at the Black Women's Wealth Alliance Wealth Academy. Likewise, I currently serve on the executive board and development committee at Exodus Lending. And while I'm very passionate about being a community servant and a change agent, in June of 2020, I launched my own financial consulting business, SLAP Financial Consulting, and SLAP is the acronym for Sounds Like a Plan. SLAP's mission is to interrupt generational poverty through financial education. I've dedicated much of my career showing up strong in support of community members, and I work every day paying it forward.
Thank you very much. Sean, you can go next.
Very well. Well, Tanya, congratulations on your success. And thank you, everyone, again, for having me this evening as well. I am delighted to be here to bestow a little of my experience and knowledge on the group that has invested a little of their time this evening to get their financial house in order. As Patrick mentioned, my name is Sean Cord. I am a Senior Vice President with Bremer Bank. My current title is I lead a group for the National Specialty and Franchise Banking Group, which we started from ground up about 14 months ago. So to give you a little background about me, I've been in the financial services industry for almost 30 years at this point. Started my banking career going through a management training program. I have had the pleasure and the honor of actually working in various different lines of business throughout banking, from marketing, retail banking, business banking, commercial banking, and relocated to the Twin Cities from Houston, Texas, almost 3 years ago. So, yeah, days like this when there's a lot of snow out there on the ground, I often wish that I was back in the deep South in Houston, Texas, but I'm certainly enjoying my time here in Minnesota. And also, since I've started my career with Bremer, the opportunities that have been afforded to me with Bremer Bank. Just to go, I feel like I can go and give you a whole dialogue and history of my background, but I'd leave that time to just really discuss questions that you all may have on the back end. So just know that I consider myself a financial services expert in helping small business owners reach their financial aspirations.
Thank you very much. And Ian?
Hi, hello, everybody. Hear me? Everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm Ian Mays. I am a former athlete. Used to play running back, went to college, and had a pretty serious injury. Nonetheless, it wasn't career ending, but I understood myself. I wanted to be looked at more than just an athlete, and started thinking about, making my family proud and the things that I wanted in order for my life. I've got a 5-year-old daughter and I've got a 4-year-old son. I had a little bit of a lack of direction in life after I got done playing, and ended up finding my way. And I spent some time at Wells Fargo for 6 years and spent a little time at Ameriprise, and now I'm with Merrill Lynch. I've been in the finance industry for almost 10 or 11 years here. Just really passionate about, we see these current events with the Amir Lock and just the various events with George Floyd, and how do we keep ourselves out of these? We can't get out of the crosshairs. We are minorities, but we're not all going to be rappers. We're not going to be athletes. What are our other options here? And I know that, I'm very passionate about this organization because there are a lot of people leaving, myself, I moved here from Madison, Wisconsin about 12 years ago. I'm from Peoria, Illinois. I'm a military vet, spent some time in Germany, but there's a real issue with this, the city, as far as the Black talent leaving the city, and I was fortunate enough to be on a conference call where there was less than 2% of the African-American population in the city holds the wealth. So there's an extreme wealth gap there. And I'm really passionate about closing that. So I'm really happy to be here, and I appreciate you, Patrick, for having me and everybody else. And I'm just happy to be here. So here we go.
Thank you very much for all of your introductions. And Ian, it's nice to meet a fellow military brat. I lived in Okinawa as well. So
My man, my man.
So moving on to our next question. So when we talk about financial literacy, what are the top 3 financial topics we all should understand and strive to be good at for financial success and stability now and in the future? And what brings you to that decision to classify these top 3 things?
I'll go. I mean, you want to
Yeah,
start
you
me
can
to
go
the
first.
question? Anyone? I'll go.
Yeah.
I would say let's not pocket watch. Focus on what's going on in your actual household. Try to use the internet at ease and really just stay in. What are your goals? What do you want to live? Don't forget what your goals are. Don't forget what you want to do with your life. Ultimately, it's easy to watch how somebody else is living their lives. And it can lead you to some dangerous places. We have a big problem with that in the Black community. As far as just he has a nice car, why don't I? Or she has a nice car, why don't? And that's not just the Black community. I mean, that's humanity. But why don't I have this? They have this. Why don't I have it? And it's like things take time, and all that glitters is in gold. There's loans. You could take out a loan. There's a variety of reasons why people have the things they have. What interest rate are they paying on that car that they just bought? You don't know that. Nobody knows. They just see the car, but they don't know what is the interest rate. When is it a good time to buy the car? When is it a good time to buy the home? What environment are we really living in right now? Is it a good time to purchase? Is it a good time to rent? But you really can put all those things on the back burner when you just skip ahead and go, well, I want this because somebody else has it. And I feel like that's a real big issue in our community that we need to get corrected. And, that's my answer to just kick it off. I did jump in there, but that's really my feelings on the question.
No worries. No need to apologize for the jumping in.
I agree with you, Ian. I have a workshop, and it's called Keeping Up with the Joneses. And so that's exactly what we address is, staying in your lane and doing what you need to do to reach your financial SMART goals. Patrick, will you repeat the question?
Oh yeah, sorry. So when we talk about financial literacy, what are the top 3 financial topics we all should understand and strive to be good at for financial success, stability now and in the future?
Okay. So creating a spending plan and a financial SMART goal is one that I encourage community members, to task themselves with, because it's going to give you a real snapshot of what your financial situation looks like. And then, recognizing and understanding your credit. What are the features of the FICO score, how that works for you, against you, how it will be used against you, and how to create sound financial decision-making and money management skills.
Yeah, those are fantastic. Thank you both, Ian, as well as Tanya, for contributing to that. I also, in addition to, obviously, we say exactly what Tanya was talking about, which is budget. It's one word, but what does budget mean? It means that when it comes down to the amount of income that you're generating and the expenses that you have, you want to make sure that your expenses do not exceed your income. Create a plan. It could be as simple as a piece of paper or a ledger. You draw a line down the middle, you list out all of your expenses on one side, and you list out your sources of income. Figure out how you can make sure that your expenses don't exceed. It's very tempting to go, Amazon, a couple of clicks away, and things show up at your door. And then the next thing you know, you have debt. So avoid those spur of the moment purchases. That's one thing. But then also, how do you save for your future? That's another aspect that's the second that I would say. And so when you create that budget and you have a surplus, you put a little money away. And then the third aspect of it is that a lot of times in our community, we simply don't talk about it's how do we prepare for when we're not here? What have we done to make sure that our intentions are realized? We talk a lot about, like Tanya has had great success getting out of debt, and I'm hopeful that she, as well as everyone on this call, even though most of you may be pretty young, what are you doing to make sure that your loved ones are not in a worse situation after you're gone than when you're actually here? So those are kind of the three things that I would say focus on, not necessarily buzzwords, but how do you get your house in order today? What do you do for your future retirement? And what do you do to prepare your loved ones for when you're not here?
Wow,
Can
thank you.
Can I follow up on what Sean just said? She made an incredible point, and we live in the city of Minneapolis, and let's put the elephant in the room. We there is no estate planning. There hasn't been enough estate planning in our community. You look at Prince, or you look at Michael Jackson, or you look at the performers.
Yes.
Yeah, we're entertainers, but what is really going on behind the scenes? When you have people lining up pretending to be your child, and your estate is 153 million, and you're an entertainer, that's a real big problem, and it's embarrassing. And that's not the way we need to be represented across this community. And it's happened. I don't even want to say Patti LaBelle. I can't remember, or Aretha Franklin, but there's never anything, you get the gold casket, but what is really going on? Who are you really leaving this legacy to? There's no generational wealth, because the state's taking about almost 50% of that when it goes to probate. And you don't have it, you're not set up properly, and then we do it to we do it to ourselves over and over again. And we are more than that. And that's really, sorry, Sean, I just wanted to follow up on what you were talking about. It just reminded me, I'm like, man, I just read about Prince's estate and Michael, it's just like, we are better than this, and we can do better, and we will be better, but it starts with us.
Well, the key thing there, Ian, and everyone else, the key point to remember, you mentioned celebrities that we all can't necessarily identify with, because we've not been able to generate the level of wealth. And so you think estate planning that's something for the wealthy. If you have a vehicle, if you have any type of, it doesn't even have to have real value, but something that you hold dear to your heart, where do you want that to go when you're gone? When we're talking about possessions that may be worth something to your family and your legacy, what are you doing to make sure that your wishes are actually carried out? That's what I'm referring to. So a lot of times we get caught up in, well, I don't make that kind of money. I don't have millions of dollars. It's not about just that. It's about making sure that your house is in order, even if it means getting an insurance policy, so that if your family has to put you to rest, they have the proceeds and the means to do so, and they don't have to go into debt to do so. So that's part of what we're talking about here. It's about planning for the today, the immediate future, and then also for when you're not here.
Thank you for that, Sean. I'd just like to add, the majority of organizations and businesses that we work for offer you free life insurance policies. And that too is another workshop that I'm working on, because the level of the financial literacy level that for the population that I'm working with reminds me of how I was a novice to this. I didn't know none of this. And so that's where my passion lies with those that are just learning this knowledge, trying to change their mindset and get them to start recognizing the benefits that they have with employees, because a lot of them, $50,000 up front. You have free life insurance that you don't have to pay for, but for an additional fee, you can cover your dependents and add more onto yours. But also in terms of estate planning, and the importance of having the transfer deeds on your vehicle through the DMV, on your mortgage in your home, and knowing that, when there's equity in your property, it's important to even have those conversations with whoever you're going to transfer those assets over to. And that's the mission of SLAP, is to interrupt that generational poverty and have these valuable conversations around estate planning, whether it's a will, and just, making sure. I mean, how many of you remember when the insurance man used to come to your grandma's house with these little brown men with the books to sign, yep, paid for. It's valuable, very valuable. And when you're an empty nester and you don't have any dependents, then there's that. I had a young lady called me and said, I just purchased a $50,000 life insurance policy on my 5-year-old. And I asked her, how is that going to benefit your 5-year-old? And I encouraged her to think about getting that policy on herself and taking the monies that she's putting or contributing to her 5-year-old's life insurance policy and put it in a money market. So when she turns 18, she has some form of wealth right there for herself. So, getting that financial house in order is key, specifically around estate planning, especially if you have dependents. But even your savings, you have to delegate who those finances go to. And so that's, to me, is a whole nother webinar, estate planning. And I'm happy to be a part of that as well.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Thank you all very much for this input. It's very necessary. I very much appreciate it. So, and this is a great segue into my next question for you all. So this question is about credit scores, because this is something that can help or hinder your ability to take out a loan for a business or to buy a house. So for those who are here that probably, or who maybe don't know about credit scores, so what exactly is a credit score? And maybe what makes it go up and down, and how can we all improve our credit scores year over year? One final question I'll add on to that, or what are some common misconceptions about credit scores?
And I know, Sean, this is your lane, but this is my favorite topic. And I just want to briefly say, the way I explain credit scores and reports to the population I serve, I look at it like, when you're in school, you have a report card. That's your credit report. But when you get your grade, that's your credit score. And so how FICO structures that whole 35, 30, the meat and the potatoes of your credit score, those are key elements to your financial wealth, is you can leverage some great deals having a really good credit score in terms of insurance, interest rates, and so on and so forth. But I'm gonna give this to you, Sean.
Well, thank you, Tanya. Of course, everyone looks to the banker, especially a career banker, for an explanation on credit scores. And Tanya, I think that's, in layman's terms, a good way of describing what a credit score really is. And I would say the biggest misconception is it's difficult if you have a low credit score. It's difficult to turn that around. It's really not as difficult as it used to be. Going back to FICO, the changes made in 2008 to FICO 08, that's where a lot of medical bills, if you had to have, say, file bankruptcy due to medical expenses, that carried less weight after FICO 08 than it did before. So if you are looking at yourself, you say, okay, well, I'm a recent college grad, or maybe not so recent. I have a lot of student loan debt. I have accumulated other excess debt. What do I do? that's where Tanya and her story can help you figure out, well, you hear, well, do I pay off the high interest rate debt first? What do I do? There's always, the key is to have a plan. If you go through life and don't have a plan, then you'll end up right where you are today. But figure out what your situation is and start chipping away a little bit at a time. I tell people the biggest way or the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. You can't put the whole thing in your mouth. You can't climb Mount Everest all in an hour. It's one step at a time. And so going back to that biggest misconception, if you have a low credit score, it doesn't mean that you have to stay there. Put together a plan to figure out how to increase that credit score. So subscribe to some of the free credit. I'm not going to give anyone a free ad here because, but there are some of those that are out there to give you your credit score from all three credit bureaus. Yes, there are three credit bureaus that most creditors report to, and you can get your credit score. Figure that out. Know that usually those three are not the same, and it depends on whether you're going for a mortgage or other type of installment debt or other type of debt altogether as to whether or not that company uses which one of the three that they use. And know that a good credit score is anything above 720. 720 and above is considered really good. When you have a score at that point, or 720 or higher, you can pretty much obtain anything as long as you have a source of income. So a lot of people think, well, maybe I shouldn't have any debt at all. The reality is, in order to generate a credit score, you have to have some debt. It's about using debt responsibly. So if you've lived to this point and you don't have a credit card, the reality is no credit actually hurts you. So if you don't have any credit and you try to go get credit and you don't really have you've not proven that you can use credit responsibly, that's what that credit score says. It says, you as an individual, I've been able to garner credit and I've used it responsibly. Yes, use debt responsibly. So if you have a credit score below 700, especially if it's below 600, put together a plan. Know that you can move that credit score incrementally by paying off debt. Make sure that if you find yourself in a bind, this is where a lot of times, especially those of us in our community, we figure we can outrun it. We figure we can ignore it. We don't have to listen. Oh, it's unsecured. I don't have to. No, that's not true. It's going to find you. It's going to haunt you, especially if it's student loan debt. That debt will outlive you, and the government will look for a way to get repaid. So reach out to your creditors if you find yourself in a bind. Reach out to them proactively. Put together a plan, even if it's $5 a month. Put together a plan, and you'll find, and most people can probably identify with this over the course of the last 2 years. Creditors want to work with you, but if they have to find you, if they have to keep calling you and you ignore them, it gets reported as a derogatory, and it makes it that much more difficult. So know what a good credit score is, which is above 720. If you find that that's not where your score is right now, that's where it is. It's not there right now. Think of it that way. And I can't say enough. Call your creditors, put together a plan, and start using your debt responsibly.
I would just like to add for community members and my neighbors that are trying to determine what are next steps to build credit. There's the secured credit card, in which you would give your financial institution an X amount of money and they'll give you a secured card. And what you do is utilize it, maintain 30% of the credit utilization or less. I like to say 15. And then they report to the credit bureaus and you start building your credit score. And then that's just a brief description of the secured card. But then there's also the credit builder's loan. And that's a loan, short term, probably about 6 months to a year, small loan, probably about $1,000. And you apply for that. It doesn't require that you have a good credit score, but it requires that you have the income to pay the loan. They don't give you the actual cash, but you get the loan, they keep it in an account, a CD or a money market, and you earn interest on that, and you pay it back monthly as if they gave you the actual cash. And that too built your credit score. In some instances, I'm a reader, and I always encourage everyone to read the fine print, the really, really small fine print, because that's where you're going to find the majority of your information. But read the terms and make them explain it to you in a way that you understand, so you know what you're getting yourself into. But those are just two ways to build your credit if you are in that position where you're trying to work up to that point now. But then for those who have credit card debt, the importance of paying more than the minimum due to get the principal down, and in turn, get that paying less interest. Because one thing about credit, and the reason why it matters, because it's going to determine how much you're going to pay to borrow.
Very good point,
I'm
Tanya.
here, and I'm in total agreement with Sean and Tanya, and I would say this to you. Like, thank you so much for the both of you bringing this up, but to take it even further, if you want to know whether a lot of people don't understand what is a secure credit card. But I mean, depending on where you're going to go, you put $300 down. It's going to be cash, maybe. You're going to have to, get yourself started, but you can get that money back and it can get upgraded to a credit card, and things can change, depending on how you want to manage your life. And once again, it's discretion, and like what are your goals? How do you want to move forward? What do you really want out of life? It's one thing to talk about it. Where do you really want to go? So, and I remember, like I said, I'm a former athlete, and when I was done playing, I'm like, I'm not a football player anymore. What am I doing with my life? What's next? I had no idea. But once I really started getting my ducks in a row, I'm still getting them in a row. Still, we all are. But it may be 300. Who knows what amount it may be? But you can get that secured credit card, and you're putting 300 down, and you're making sure you're paying it on time. And once again, staying under that 30%. You still want to stay under that 30%, but it's an opportunity to prove yourself that I'm a responsible, I'm being responsible about how I'm managing, my business moving forward. And things can really go up from there, and it really is a big impact on you, because it's still technically a credit card, even though you're putting the cash on it. You're showing the lenders that you are being responsible and that you really are looking to, make those payments on time. So I just want to thank the both of you for bringing up that point and add on to that.
Thank you very much. So my next question, this question is directed to Tanya. So not only have you worked for years on financial education in our community, but you also own your own business. What is unique about your journey to owning your own business is the fact that you have experience being in debt and getting out of debt. So I was wondering if you could tell us some of the lessons you have learned and that you continue to teach people who are trying to manage their own debt. Are there any ideas that have not been mentioned yet?
Well, what I've learned from, walking my own walk in my journey in conquering debt and building wealth, it's a mindset change. It's a lifestyle change. It doesn't happen overnight. There's going to be, it's going to require a certain amount of patience and grace with yourself, commitment, dedication, and there's also going to be some sacrifices that you're going to have to make. In creating that spending plan and that financial SMART goal, I think those two go hand in hand, because the spending plan gives you a realistic snapshot of your finances. Some people refer to it as a budget, but the majority of the people I serve, they say a budget sounds like accounting on steroids. So I changed my language And, you know, I call it a spending plan, but it, as I mentioned, it gives you a realistic snapshot of your finances, and it holds you accountable for being real with yourself about your income and your fixed and variable expenses. And it helps you to identify those unconscious money spending habits, which I also coin money leaks, that we all have. And so, how do we plug those money leaks? When you're being real with yourself about your income and your expenses, like Sean had mentioned, even if it's just taking a piece of paper and drawing a line down the middle, but just being realistic with yourself about that. It worked best on a monthly basis. And that in itself is overwhelming at times, yet it's paramount to finding what is your needs and your wants, and then ways to save. You may have to downsize your living arrangements. Like I said, there's going to be some sacrifices. For instance, if you stop at the coffee shop every day on your way to work, if you're only spending $1, that's $5 a week. There's 52 weeks in a year. Do the math. That's $260 a year at buying coffee at a gas station. Now we have those community members that like going to the premium coffee shops. They may be roughly $5 for a cup of coffee or whatever the specialty drink is that you prefer. But if you're going in $5 times 5 days, that's $25 a week. There's 52 weeks in a year. That's $1,300 a year on coffee. And then, you know, when you're talking about your needs and your wants, we all need to eat, but do we need to go out to eat on a regular basis? Perhaps try meal prepping. I probably neglected to mention that I'm a retired chef over 30 years. And so I meal prep on Sundays. And when I go into the office, you know, before COVID, I take my lunch with me. And with the conditions that our community is in now, with the DoorDash and all these other places, there's a $15 minimum requirement for delivery. So if you're ordering out every day, $15 a day, that's $75 a week. There's 52 weeks in a year. That's $3,900 a year. So recognizing what your needs and your wants are, determining what's going to benefit you in terms of your financial SMART goal. You just have to take a look at those money leaks, those unconscious money leaks that we all have, and recognize where you can close those leaks. And that's not to say don't treat yourself, but when you keep your eye on that financial SMART goal, you know, you have that, and that in itself is going to hold you accountable for taking the steps needed to achieve whatever that goal is that you set for yourself.
Thank you very much, Tanya. I really liked that response, and it had me thinking about my own money leaks. So,
Hey, DoorDash is a beast.
I ordered something that was supposed to be, excuse me for digressing, but it was $12 if I went and got it. It was $37 with DoorDash. And I have a hard time. Like I said, it's a lifestyle change. It's a mindset change. I just have a hard time spending that type of money. I could have spent $37 and went to the store and got the ingredients and made it myself and had enough for a couple of weeks. And so then there's that, learning how to stretch your grocery budget, buying in bulk. Now the culinary specialist is coming out of me, buying in bulk, clean and season, Ziploc bag and throw it in the freezer. And then I also have a workshop where I'm trying to get families to come back to the table, turn the devices off. That frozen meat in the crock pot on slow when you get home. Throw some cream of mushroom soup and noodles in there and breadsticks in the oven, and let's sit down at the table and break bread and turn the phones off. So I have a workshop on that too.
Hey, all right.
Oh, Tanya, you reminded me of that thing. I have a solution for that. I have something for that. I got something for that too. Awesome.
So I should go on for time's sake. So my next question actually is for Sean. So you play multiple roles at Bremer Bank, including working with franchisee customers. So if I wanted to become a franchisee, how do I get started? And what would make me, bankable or able to receive a loan to start the business to a bank as a franchisee?
Yeah, great question there, Patrick. Anytime I have a conversation with what I call an aspiring entrepreneur that wants to look into being a franchisee, my first question is, well, where's your passion? You think about, a lot of times people think and automatically stop with quick service restaurants as a franchisee. If you drive down the street, chances are 90% of the logos that you see on the side of a building have a franchise model. So it really depends on what your passion is, because if you do something for the sake of, you think it's a way to generate income, but you're not passionate about it, then chances are you're really not going to be as successful at that as if you decided to do something else. And I'll use an example of, well, if you want to become a McDonald's franchisee, but you really love working with children, then why not look at something like Kids Are Kids or Goddard School or Primrose or early childhood education if your passion is to work with children. So start with where your passion is. That's my first answer. And then learn everything that you can about that particular model. Now, when it comes down to what it takes financially for you to get a loan from Bremer Bank or any financial institution, you have to have equity. So that's where going back and saving and making sure that you've accumulated a nest egg so that when you come to the bank and it's going to cost you, say, $2 million to become a franchisee, that franchisee is going to look for you to have a particular amount of money, and it varies from one franchise to the next. As a franchisee, they're going to want you to have a particular amount of equity that you can inject into it. So yes, equity is a big deal. That oftentimes is $250,000. Sometimes it's $500,000. It's a lot of money. So, and a quick, easy way of looking at it is, if I need $1 million loan, chances are I need $250,000 in savings to inject in equity. That's if I get a conventional loan. Now, there are routes where you can use the SBA guarantee, and there's an SBA loan that's available to you depending on what you're going into. So there are a lot of ifs, ands, or whats or buts that factor in as variables. But that SBA loan, if you have some experience, you can typically only have to put in 10% down, as opposed to having to come in with 25% or 35%. So a lot of it, Patrick, and the audience here, it varies depending on what you're looking to do, whether you're buying real estate or you're looking to have leasehold improvements, you're leasing space and you need to improve that space. There are a lot of variables out there. So know that you need equity. Anyone that tells you you can just there's a quick get rich quick scheme, you don't really have to have your own money. Yeah, Ian is shaking his head. Usually there's a catch to that. Start with saving and make sure that you have your own equity to bring to the table. So that's my advice there.
I would also like to add the importance of taking the first-time homebuyers workshop, in that you get a coach that walks you from day one all the way until you get your keys. And be a reader. I can't put enough emphasis on being a reader, asking those hard questions and making them explain it to you in a way that you understand, so you don't get caught up in a subprime, whatever the case it may be. Being a reader, I'm always put emphasis on that. Don't sign docs without reading them thoroughly and understanding what you're signing up for.
Yep.
And also, I'll add to that. Oh, as far as you talk about building equity. If you want to be a first-time home buyer, you could take a piece of that equity. I mean, where you're beginning is not necessarily where you're going to finish. You could really, I mean, you're paying rent. You realize when you're paying rent, you're paying somebody else's equity. you're taking care of somebody else. So if you want to build equity, you can get out, you're in a mortgage and you're basically, like you said, a nest egg. You could take a portion of that money if you decide to do the home equity route. But there are those home equity line of credits where you're betting on yourself and you say, I'm taking care of my business, and you could take a portion and purchase another property, and then maybe you rent out the other property and you get a manager to rent that, take care of that property, and all of a sudden you find out you got a small business going for yourself, and it gets deeper and deeper. But we're not going to go there. But you go, you wonder why people are doing well and doing whatever. However, it's not, really overly. I don't want to call it's not overly complicated, but things can move fast in the right direction for you. You stay disciplined. On Sean's point and times as well. I just wanted to add on to that. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah. So to kind of bring to a close what I was saying about being bankable, start with, if you have a desire to be your own business owner, start with building a relationship with your bank. Walk into the bank, ask for a business banker or commercial banker or an SBA banker. Start developing a relationship. I can't put enough emphasis on that, because that relationship, that individual will help guide you with what you really need or what that bank is going to look for in you as an applicant, if you're looking to borrow money at some point. So make sure you develop that relationship. So I say that, and then I also invite you to go to brimmer.com. We have a number of bankers that would love to visit with you. Small little shameless plug.
You just had to. You just had to do that. You just had to do that.
Absolutely.
You just had to do that.
You see that B? You see that B right there, right? That B. So here's where I'm gonna dig in a little bit more. That bar, that blue bar above the B, it means that we go above and beyond for our customers. So another little shameless plug there.
I didn't know that. So
we always go above the bar. Absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry, Patrick.
Oh, that's okay. So I have one more question, this time for Ian. So you are a financial advisor for Merrill Lynch Bank of America, and you probably get clients asking about how to save for retirement or a major purchase like a house. So what are some of the financial questions you ask them to prepare for your meeting?
Honestly, the way things start is just build a rapport, and then you build a personal wealth analysis, and really just get granular and figure out what are your assets and liabilities. And then you kind of really start from there. What are your goals? We have, you have essential goals, you have important goals, and then you have aspirational goals. Essential goals are, talk about a home purchase. Important goals, I want to send my kids to college. Aspirational goals, what kind of vacation are you looking to take? And then you also have to factor in Social Security as well, which may or may not, who knows if that's going to be there down the line. But, those are the kind of questions you ask, and you really just try to peel the onion. And I always, personally, I use it doesn't seem like this on this. It doesn't seem like it now, but I use the 80-20 rule. I try to listen more than I speak, and just try to be observant and pay attention. There's this fine line between being empathetic and then there's, I remember my time at Ameriprise, they said, be interested, not interesting. You just listen to people. You start talking about yourself too much, then it's like, well, what about me? And you figure that there's even I don't want to say a client, so to speak, but anywhere in life, and just in life in general, you forget about the other party that's speaking to you and sharing, dropping some gems on you. And it's easy to overlook that. So I would say, emotional intelligence and empathy, and you can really just use that 80-20 rule because it really take you a long way. Um, I would love to talk about the things that I've done in my life, and I have. But you really want to get to know somebody on a more granular level. It's easy to interject and go, well, yeah, I related to this. And then you try to sound like you're one upping somebody. It's like, sometimes you just got to sit back and go, even though you have a similarity or a connection with like what their past may be or whatever their future endeavors may be, sometimes you just gotta, I try to zip it and just tell me more about it. Or how did it make you feel when, or how would a vacation make you feel after you worked this many years in your life? How would that make you feel to take a vacation, that trip you wanted to take? And then people start thinking about their lives differently. Like, I guess I never looked at it like that. Well, and then you quantify it, well, you can turn this into reality and you start putting it into a dollar amount and go, this is achievable. And people will be surprised, like, yeah, you can actually live that life as long as what Sean and Tanya are saying, if you have proper behaviors and you have discipline, there are going to be sacrifices. There always will be for whatever you want in life. But your goals are your goals. Those are the things you want to do in life, and there will be sacrifices. It's not going to come easy. But ultimately, that's how I've been just, building financial plans, and, and that's how I've just been going about my business, honestly.
I agree with you, Ian. I utilize when I'm doing coaching and consultations, I'm very deliberate in using my motivational interviewing skills. So not to ask those yes or no questions, not why did you do that? Help me understand why you did that, because it puts the onus back on the individual and hold them accountable for reaching their goals. So kudos to you for that, because that's what I picked up on what you just shared.
Yeah, it's surprising. And then that moment of silence, like that moment of silence where you don't always have to say something when there's you don't always have to interject. It's just that moment of silence where it's like, oh yeah, you're right. Because it's easy to keep talking over people and say what you want to say and steer the conversation where you want it to go. But it's not really about us. It's about how can we make, once again, that's why we're all here in the first place, is how can we make this community better, But that's a one by one, like you said, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. But it's really just that space where I don't know how my life would feel, and it's easy to jump in and go steer them this way. And it's like, you don't want to steer anyone anyway, because it's about the other party. So that's just my approach. And it's I'm here. I'm on the panel. I'm talking to y'all. So.
Well, that I've always heard, and I try to speak to understand as opposed to be understood. And that goes in with exactly what you're saying there. If you seek to understand, then it goes a lot farther.
Thank you very much for that response, Ian. So I guess now it's time for the Q&A portion of the evening. So I have 2 questions right here in the chat for the panelists here. The first one, how do you promote, recruit financial literacy in the Black community? I heard keeping up with the Joneses, which seems to view wealth and success as material things. In whole, how do we change this mindset to be motivated to learn about financial literacy and create a legacy of Black wealth for our families and communities? So if I hear this question correctly, it's like, so what do we do after this call for everyone else?
Well, I would just mention, I think I heard the question a little different in terms of how to recruit and promote and encourage African Americans to, obtain financial literacy. Like for me, I wanted it. I don't know if I mentioned, but I used to be poor, single, and on welfare. Single mom on welfare, Section 8. And I became an empty nester. And it's like, okay, now what? I've lived for everybody else. Now it's time for me to achieve something that I've always wanted to do. And it was initially to open up my own restaurant. But then I found they were building the light rail down University. So I pivoted into home ownership. And so I did what I needed to do to find the resources to help me get there. And so I wanted it. You have to want it. One thing about coaching, financial coaching, counseling, the bank is not gonna just give you a loan. You gotta open up the door and walk in and be ready and be prepared and, have your plan together. And even if, it doesn't work out at that time, and this is something else that I'm very ambitious about holding financial institutions to, instead of giving someone a denial letter, give them a plan. Here's why, no, you don't qualify. Here's why. Here's where there's room for improvement, and here's some resources to help you get there. Building that community relationship, not only with the customer, but within the community as well. And so again, you have to want it. Just like everyone that's here listening to this conversation says to me, they want it. They're trying to figure out what steps they need to take to get there, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I agree with Tanya. You have to want it, but I also believe that corporations have a responsibility to really give to the communities, give back to the communities in which they where they operate. And so what I didn't say about the reason that I chose Bremer of the offers that I received when I relocated to the Twin Cities is that I felt that Bremer Bank, the values of the organization, the vision and the values of the organization more closely aligned with my own. And so one of them is cultivating thriving communities. And so to the point of what you asked, what are you doing to make a difference? Well, you think about junior achievement, where we have volunteers, employees that go and volunteer and provide financial literacy within junior high, because a lot of times we start well after those formative years, and if you wait too late, a lot of bad habits have already formed. So I firmly believe in starting in elementary school and also starting in junior high, having those conversations about what financial literacy means, how you budget a checking account, or how you balance a checking account, not budget, how you balance a checking account. And Tanya's gonna make me take that word budget out of my vocabulary anyway, and start using the word spending plan. So, but how you balance your checking account and what it means to make those sacrifices. No, you can't always go through the drive-through as your parents are going by those fast food restaurants. We need to prepare those meals at home. So it starts early, but again, there has to be a balance between us as individuals wanting it and also the corporations that are happily receiving our dollars, our hard-earned dollars, being socially responsible and giving back to those communities as well.
Thank you. So another question we have in the chat. So I am a 2-year homeowner with a mortgage insurance payment. If I insure myself to cover the cost of my house, $300,000, can I eliminate that mortgage payment in my monthly payments?
I will speak up and say that I am not the mortgage expert here. However, Bremer Mortgage, we have individuals that can help to answer that question. My understanding of being a homeowner myself is that to not have that mortgage insurance, you need to have at least 20% equity into it. And so if you if you purchased a home and your loan to value is greater than, I believe that 80% is, I believe, that's where they add mortgage insurance. And then they escrow, your mortgage company also escrows your insurance as well as taxes that are associated with your property. So I'm not sure about insuring yourself. If that will eliminate that, that's just not my lane, and I apologize, I can't answer that question for you.
I would encourage that community member to go back and read their documents, because if you signed up for private mortgage insurance, typically it's for 5 years, and then it may eventually fall off, but your paperwork may say be different. And that's why I put the emphasis on being a reader, understanding what you're signing, and ask those questions. So I would encourage you to go back and read your deed and your loan documents and find out what it says about private mortgage insurance. If you signed up for it, you can, no matter what other insurance you get, that term of the PMI, the private mortgage insurance, is going to be there.
And if I could add to what Tanya's saying, as far as being, you're talking about financial literacy. I remember a time back when I was opening teen accounts and whatnot. And, stay articulate, and don't forget there's fraud out there too in this industry. If you can't write in cursive, or it could come back. If you put in a plus sign, I remember there's teens putting, and I'm not disrespecting anybody, but these are issues that come up in the community that I noticed. If you're putting a plus sign when you're signing something, it's like, well, you're opening yourself up to a greater level of the possibility of fraudulent activity, happening in your accounts. And I just try to, continue to let people know, continue to invest in yourself first and foremost. And when you talk about reading books, that's an investment. It takes time, but it's an investment within yourself. So thank you, Tanya, for bringing that up. And something just kind of come to my mind. It's like, bring out that paperback book. Get off the Kindle. Like, let those pages touch your fingers and learn. Never stop learning. I'm still learning. We all are. That's life. And I remember I'm reading, articulate books and just going, there's nothing wrong with flipping back a couple of pages and going, I didn't quite understand that. Reread it. Read it over again. Until you
Get your
understand
highlighter out. Highlight the words you don't understand. Create your document and go to Google and get the definition. Now you got you a collegiate vocabulary to work with.
Don't forget, and let's not forget, 300 or 400 years ago, we weren't allowed to read or write. So, look at it that way as well. We might have we might have a lot, but there is peace if you want it. So you can sit there and read a book, or like I said, you can go on the internet. It's your time. How are you spending your time? There's only 24 hours in a day. Like, don't get that fear of missing out. Like I said, continue to invest in yourself and watch who you're hanging out with and who you're putting yourself around. And try to keep a clean conscience and make sure the people around you are really supporting you. That's mic drop. I'm done. But really.
Thank you very much. So our next question, does Bremer Bank do business with Florida residents?
Florida residents. So the answer is, well, let me clarify that. Bremer is located in Minnesota, also in Wisconsin and North Dakota. However, the team that I lead, which is National Specialty, we do business in all 48 contiguous states. So anywhere our borders are, the Canadian border, the Atlantic, Pacific, and the Gulf. anywhere inside of those 48 states, absolutely.
Thank you. And we unfortunately have time for one last question. Does how much I put as deposit when buying a home affect the mortgage interest rate? Do you recommend putting the minimum possible or maximum possible deposit when buying a house?
So that I'll start there, and I welcome Tanya and Ann to also contribute. My thought is, if you have the money to put to equity to put down, you can buy points. And again, I'm speaking from personal knowledge and purchasing a couple of homes throughout the course of my life. You know, I had to buy one moving here to Minnesota from Texas, but the more equity you can put down, the lower your loan to value. You avoid that mortgage insurance that the question was asked about before, and you could potentially buy down points on your interest rate. So all of those things, is it better to put more into it? Absolutely, is what I would say. But then I also tell you that I wouldn't deplete savings, because with home ownership, there's always something that comes up. When you're leasing, you can call a landlord or someone else. When you have a home and you're purchasing a home, whether it's a furnace and it's always, it's cold outside. Furnace is gonna quit when it's cold. And so, or it's a refrigerator or something, have savings to make sure that you can cover those expenses. Or at the very least, make sure that when you are a homeowner, you invest in some type of home warranty plan, so that if your furnace does go on the blink, at least you have something that you can have someone to come out and take a look at it. So short answer is, put down as much as possible, but do not deplete your savings, so that you can have something to a rainy day fund or something to tap into.
And I just would like to add kudos to that, Sean. You nailed it. But just, in terms of assets, when you're a homeowner, you have your personal assets and you have your interpersonal assets. My personal assets and your personal assets are the knowledge that you have. I'm a reader. You can go, I got me a toolbox, I got me a power drill, I use YouTube. But my interpersonal assets, I got a friend that's a roofer, I got one that lays cement, I have one that's a contractor. So those are those interpersonal assets that when you become a homeowner, you start building that network. So you'll have, it's financially, it'll help you in the long run. But if you have to straight up call Roto-Rooter or somebody like that, they're charging $200 an hour. Where your interpersonal asset, which is a friend of a friend of a friend, that's a plumber, will probably just come in and charge you $200 for the job and be 4 hours in. So just keeping that in mind when you are, even if you go to the first time home buyers workshop, that's starting to build your network. At your job, that's building your network. In the community, that's building your network. It's important to have those personal and those interpersonal assets.
Yeah,
Can I say something, Sean, as well? That's it. That's why we're here as well. This is networking. And you look around in other communities, it's not a crab in a barrel approach. You look around, it's the elephant in the room. We really don't talk to each other enough. Who do we know? What are our resources? And it's just this gap in communication where I'm doing good. I'm gonna isolate myself, and I'm good. I'm getting my money. And then it's like nobody's talking to each other. Nobody's trying to work with one another, and it hurts us all.
Well, let me let you know, Ian, they call me the queen of resources.
Panel. I was really excited about being on this panel.
Yeah.
It's just really, this is about closing that gap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Building a bridge with communication with one another, because we're not talking enough to each other. That's a big issue. And we need to stop, and we need to find a way to, it doesn't need to be like that.
So,
I agree.
oh yeah, I agree. Thank you very much for that all this insight this evening. So, and thank you for the questions from the viewers as well. So to close out this event, I was wondering if each of our panelists could say one phrase of advice on what all of us can do to increase our financial literacy in 2022.
I would like to say, shop with cash, make a list, don't shop hungry. If you can leave the kids at home when you go grocery shop, do that. But my final thoughts are, you work hard for your money, make it work for you. Watch the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves.
And Tanya, I thought you were going to tell everyone to read.
I think I did too many times already.
So I'll end it on, gosh, just kind of wrapping up the evening. We've talked about a number of different things, and it really is making sure you have a plan. And that proper planning takes place with starting, getting a pen, getting a paper. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And then I'll end it with just leaving you with this thought of making sure that you have a proper plan to take care of what you want your legacy to be, making sure that you're not a burden to your loved ones if you're no longer here. Life is not it's not guaranteed to any of us, so make sure you have a plan.
I guess I'll go here. We're not monolithic. Black people are not monolithic. Minorities, however you want. We're not monolithic. Don't be afraid of not being monolithic. Don't follow the crowd. Do what works best for you. I'm gonna leave it right there.
Well, thank you all very much for it. This was an incredible evening for me as well. So, so I hope everyone got something, pretty incredible from this evening. I sure did. So thank you very much once again. And you see in the chat, reach out to us at communications@nationalblackmba.twincities.org if you have any other questions or comments. Thank you all very much and have a good night. Stay safe. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.